Oh, wait, you didn't tell me you were going to be recording this.
Let's piece these broken pieces together.
All right, guys, we are on episode. What episode is this now? 7. Thank you. How sad am I that I don't know my own episodes, but my guest does?
I may have just read it on your text to me.
Okay, good. Episode 7, Phumblepodcast or pHumblepodcast. I've had people say that.
So which one is it?
Exactly. I've had people say that they thought it was pHumble because of my name, and then humble because I have the P lowercase, as you probably see it.
So what is it? What did you want it to be?
I wanted it to actually. So I was, and I've talked about this before, but it's funny. I wanted it to be something about humility. I mean, the whole point of this was to have the main point was for me to listen to my guests talk about their experiences and passions, whatever they wanted to discuss. And for me, the idea was to learn something. And then the audience, whoever's listening, the 5 people that are, they would also hopefully gain something from it. So anyway, togetherness, humility. So then I was like, okay, well, what can I name it? And then I was like, in the middle of the night at like 3 a.m., I woke up. I'm like, humble. And then I dreamt about a fumble. And then I'm like, oh, fumble? What if I spell that with a PH? And then I was like, well, my name is P, and I can lowercase the P to show humility. And then humble can be capital H.
Look at you.
Yeah. So
humility with a lowercase.
Yeah. So, but anyway, fumble or pHumble works. And I think I talked to Shada. She was like, just call it one, because then it's going to get confusing. People are not going to know what it is. So for all intents and purposes, it's Fumble Podcast. That's how I started in my head. But
okay. In my head, it's pHumble. So
okay, it all brings you back to the same, hopefully. Anyway, my guest today is a long friend, old friend, known her since I guess I was 18, and very good, special, dear friend of mine, all the way from Canada, and she's moved there, and we're going to talk about that too a little bit. Roz, how you doing, Roz?
Oh my gosh, I'm doing so good, and I just wanted to give a warm welcome to your 5 listeners. Thank you so much for being here today. We love you. We're here for you. Hope that you get something exciting out of this.
Doesn't get more humble than that.
I'm doing well, and to go off of your introduction, I'm actually not a long friend. I'm a short friend. So if anyone's curious, unfortunately, I would definitely veer towards the side of the short end of the meter stick. But yeah, I'm so excited to be here, not just to talk about happiness and me and you, but also to catch up, because it's been a while since I've seen you, Pej, and I'm really excited to do this. I'm so supportive of you doing something new and creative, and really that's all part of the journey. So I'm here to support.
I really, really appreciate you being on. And actually, creativity is one of the things that made us close friends to begin with.
So true,
isn't that? So we started. I mean, back before even UC Davis was a thing, right? We were friends through just different youth activities, and then you were like, "Hey, I can sing," and then I was like, "Hey, I think I can sing," and then we just started create. So Roz has had some of the most creative videos back in our youth. Like, she would come up with these great either covers of popular songs, and then or we would just make dance videos for no apparent reason, but then they turn out to be awesome, fun experiences. And one of my favorite ones that we did was, remember in Michigan's old apartment, we made Happy,
Yeah,
my
so
God.
relevant. We're gonna have to like
Yes, so relevant, so relevant. And that's actually a good segue because I wanted to talk about happiness. And one of the happiest friends I have is you. You're always bubbly and happy, um and it's great. Like it's inspiring to begin with, and then also like it's a learning moment for me personally because I tend to let the real world like sometimes dictate my mood. But every time I talk to you, I feel like you dictate the mood of the world around you, which is so important. And I want to like really delve into that and the mindset that brings and what it takes to, if it's even, it's probably effortless for you because you're just born that way. I feel, but maybe I'm wrong. So tell the audience, how do you adopt this happy mentality and see the glass half full all the time?
It is so funny that we're talking about this now, because we have been living through a pandemic.
Oh
And
my
I
God.
think that, like, the person that I used to be when I lived in California feels so different from where I am now. And it's been a lot of like challenges along the way. And I feel like just the idea of happiness and what comes naturally has shifted a bit. So I feel like before, yes, it did feel effortless. You really like thrive on the energy of the people around you. And we were very lucky to have such an amazing friend group. Like all of us were just such happy people. We had very similar interests. We laughed in the same ways. We laughed at the same things, maybe a
Yeah.
little too long. Um, and yeah, I feel like happiness during a pandemic, especially, has been hard and it takes effort, and it's not something that comes naturally. Like, you really have to work at it because there's so many things happening. And I'm sorry, like, I feel like this is like a really serious real fast, but
No,
um,
it's okay. It's okay.
there are so many things happening in this world that can easily bring you down. And I think that, like, for me personally, this past year has been one where I just kind of wanted to crawl in a corner and
Mm,
roll up and just kind
yeah.
of stay and just like ask someone to wake me up when it's all over, because it's been really hard on so many different fronts all at once too, all really intense, like, which is why I think in many ways this past year has felt like 10 years, because it's just been a lot to process and a lot of growth, a lot of needing to be an advocate, a lot of just really eye opening stuff. But yeah.
How no, it has been a for lack of a better term, a tragic year for many. COVID being obviously the one we all share, but then individual losses. You've gone through one, I've gone through one, Shada has gone through one. So we've all kind of been. It's just been pouring, right? So uh, more important than ever, I feel it's vital that we hang on to our happiness and find the silver lining and look for the positives, and that's why I wanted you on, because you're like to me you're one of the best examples of that, even though you're saying it's been hard for you too, which is obviously you're human and we all are, and we all go through these emotions, and sometimes it's worse than other days. So first of all, condolences to you. I know you had a recent loss, so we don't have to get into it, but I just wanted to let you know, and I let your sister know that I'm always here for you guys. And yeah, we we have a lot in common through the goods and the bads, and it seems like our worlds always align, whether it's good or bad. Like I feel like we go through similar things, and anyway, what I wanted to get into more deeply is, with all of the things to be down about, and you just said that this past year has been extremely tough. How did, first of all, let's preface all of this by explaining to the audience how did you end up going from Northern California to Canada? I know, but I want the audience to know. The 5 people want to know.
Hey, 5 people. So, I'm Roz, and as you know that now. So, yeah, I born and raised in California, purebred California girl. Love that state. It is totally the sunshine state.
Hmm.
And yeah, about 3.5 years ago, I moved to Canada. To follow this crazy thing called love. And
So
I
crazy.
so crazy. I met my husband, and he wasn't my husband at the time, obviously,
Right.
but
Right.
I met him, and we were doing the whole long distance thing. He lived in the Toronto area, so yes, I'm on the East Coast, not in sunny, beautiful Vancouver where it rains a lot. So like sunny, yes, but
Relative.
so I'm on the East Coast in Canada. We were doing a long distance relationship, and in the continued conversations, we kind of saw that this was going to go the full length, and yeah, we decided that it would make more sense for me to move to Toronto, and that is what I did. And I've been here for 3.5 years, and it's been such a journey. I feel so blessed for the people here, because I think that it would have made my transition so much more challenging had I not had a supportive group of friends. And my husband's family is also fantastic. He has a brother who's his best friend, and they remind me so much of me and my sister, who we're like inseparable. So it's just nice to have that close knit bond with family and friends. And yeah,
That,
it's been a wild journey.
so initially, when you made that decision, I'm sure it wasn't easy. I mean, you had to let go of everything you essentially knew. I know you traveled a lot before your marriage and everything, and I know you lived in Boston for a time, and this is all throughout school and after school and all of that. But um, this is a little bit different, though, right? Because it's more of a permanent thing. And I know that I just put myself in your shoes, because I lived in the East Coast for a while. I separated from my immediate family for about a couple of years, and I know that by the nearing the end of that 2 years, I was like really homesick and I wanted to come back. Now this is before marriage for me, and luckily my wife decided to move here, so I was lucky in that sense. But how was it for you having to upend and pack everything and move to not only the East Coast but another country? So Canada, right? Like, I mean, you kind of chose a good time to leave US. So
That's what everybody said. They're like, you're doing this on purpose, because it was 2017 when I left, and Trump was elected 2016. And they're like, you planned this, didn't you?
I know.
Trust me. I did not.
You
I wanted to
upgraded.
stick it. I wanted to stay in America and feel like I was part of this like hard time, and we were all going to go through it together and live through Trump's presidency. But
No, I mean, so yeah, I mean, you left during that time, and then obviously we had no idea what was to come here in the States. But how was it just on the more personal level when you had to leave your best friend, your sister, and then your parents with these? I mean, I know how close you are to them, so like that sacrifice, essentially, or was it even a sacrifice? How did you look at it?
I definitely feel lucky that I've had many experiences up to this point, living in different places, whether it was Boston, whether it was LA, which isn't that far. And I had a chance to live in Zambia for a little bit, which was really nice. I think a lot of these experiences prepared me for how to keep in touch.
Mm.
But I think the easy thing about all of those previous experiences is that I knew they were temporary. I knew that there was a time period, whether it was 2 years, whether it was 1 year, whether it was a few months, whether it was 4 years, whatever it was, I knew that there was a time stamp. Whereas with this, that's not the case. And I think that I also was in a long distance relationship for 4 years. So I had 4 years of preparing for this moment mentally, knowing that this could be my life forever. I could be moving to the other side of the country, to a different country.
Yeah.
And that could be the rest of my life. And I have so many friends who have been in similar situations where they got married to someone that lived in a different country, and the distance that they are from their family is much greater than mine. So I think that I definitely kept that in mind, and I saw that my situation, I feel very lucky that it's only a 6-hour flight. It's not 14 hours, let's say, or 24 hours, whatever.
Yeah, shout out to Sure. She did that.
You did so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I definitely feel very blessed that I am not that far, but I also think that, like, when you get married and you get married to someone who lives in a different country, you end up doing a lot of stuff at once. So in the same year, I left my job, I got married, had to plan this wedding, got married, moved to a different country. We needed to find an apartment. We furnished it. I had to figure out permanent residency, work through all of these things. And then I needed to find a job. And within 1 year, I was thankfully able to do all of those things. So it felt like a lot. And I was like, holy moly. But yeah, I give so much credit to the support system that I have here in Toronto, which I can say with full certainty that had I not had that, this would be a very different conversation, and it would have been really tough. And I don't think that I would have made it like this far, because I truly believe that you can live anywhere in the world. I could live in, and I don't want to say a random state, because I probably, like, someone's going to live there and be like, it's not that random. So I could live in the ends of the earth. As long as I have a good support system, I think that I'll be set. As long as we've got good people, as long as, like, myself and my husband feel like we have others that we can share our challenges with, share the happiness, go on a walk with, whatever it is. That's really the biggest thing for me. And of course, as part of that support system comes family. And I feel very lucky that obviously Arsh's family is here. It's not that he moved somewhere else and we're away from his parents too. I feel very lucky that we're close to his family.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to imagine a time in my life where we would be far from either parents. So if we don't live in Canada and if we don't live in Toronto, it's because we're living in California near my parents, because
Right.
I don't really see an in between. And I think the only reason that would happen is if there was some financial reason where we just couldn't live in one place over the other. But I think for my happiness and what I need in my life is to have that support system, to have those people that I can turn to in situations and just laugh with, because that's another coping mechanism for me, is just to be able to laugh and
Yeah,
enjoy
we've
it.
shared some great laughs too, you
We
and I.
sure have. Yeah.
But okay, so the you just mentioned it. The support group, it definitely helps with your happiness. But can I say though that when I've seen you in all those different situations, right? Whether it was Boston, LA, even Zambia, I want to say, like, when I would talk to you about any of those situations, you always had a positive outlook on it, right? So my thing is, yes, it helps with the support group, right? But there has to be a decision made, right? There has to be a decision made that you're going to choose that route of happiness,
That's so
right?
true.
Right. So, so it's kind of like the chicken or the egg, right? Which one comes first? Do you make the decision to be happy, and then the support group is like reinforces that? But I know people who have that support and are miserable. So
Yeah,
it's like it's
you're so right.
So I'm wondering, at what age did you decide? I mean, you kind of always had it. I've never seen you be negative, honest, and I'm being honest. I'm not just saying that. I've always seen you, like, look at everything with a positive light. So, and that is like contagious. Like when people start feeling that, right? When they're around someone like that. So how do you decide that, right? On a day to day, or even on a year like this where it was really tough for you? how do you wake up and say, I'm going to live my life to the fullest, or I'm going to be super positive about everything when it's the hardest to be? How do you make that choice and then go through with it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think you're absolutely right that happiness at the end of the day is a choice, because you can give someone all of the riches of the earth and you can give them everything that they ask for. And at the end of the day, it's a mental thing. Like, so if they are not going to look at the positive and they choose to focus on the negative, that's on them. And it's so hard to describe as to like why I choose to look at the bright stuff. But I think that probably hardship and the challenges in my life have helped me realize how lucky I am when things are good.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this, but like, yeah, this has been a tough year. We had a really unexpected and sudden death in our family, and that was really, really hard. It was hard because of COVID, and I couldn't go back home. It was hard because I, remembered,
Yeah.
in case I forgot, I remembered how far I was from home
Yeah.
and how I don't have any family here, and I don't have anyone. I have
Yeah.
a very little like family here, but I do have my support group, which I'm really grateful for. And it's just a reminder that life is so unpredictable. It can be so unfair. It doesn't make sense. There are no rules. You can work as hard as you possibly can and get to a point where finally you're reaping the benefits of the seeds that you've sown, and then that's it, and you're done. Life is over. Like um, there's no announcement, there's no heads up, there's no, for example, in this situation, there were no underlying conditions, nothing like that. And very often that's what happens in life, is that death comes unheralded. There is no banner or any sort of and notice that you have a few days to live. And even in those situations, let's say there is some sort of notice.
Yeah.
What difference is it really? Like, does it
Yeah.
really matter if we have a heads up or if we don't?
Yeah.
And actually, once this situation happened, of course, it was just absolutely devastating for the family. But it really set me back, and I was like, what am I doing with my life? Like, what is my purpose here? What if my day was tomorrow, what can I look back on? What can I show for that? What do I have? And and sometimes, maybe we didn't accomplish the things that we wanted to do. And, in COVID, maybe like we weren't able to because there were a lot of barriers in the way, a lot of obstacles. But one thing that we do have control over is our attitude and the way that we see the world and the way that we interact with people. And that is something that no matter what happens in your life, whether you're locked inside your house, whether you're traveling around the world, or whether, in the face of the most seemingly insurmountable challenges, you have a choice in how you want to present yourself, how you want to look at the world. And I think that's something that I really take to heart all the time. And it's so hard sometimes, especially when times are tough. But I really choose to just focus on the fact that, like, hey, I don't know how much time I have on this earth, but if I can just be, someone who adds to the light that's already in existence, then that's great. Like, I think that sometimes you got to just make it as simple as possible for yourself. Because yes, would I like to, establish world peace? Hell yeah, like sign me up. But like, that also feels really overwhelming, and I don't even know where I would start. There's so many things that when you just sit down and think about all the challenges that exist, I'm just like, I think I'm just going to sit here in the corner for now. But when I think about things like, okay, I'm going to go grocery shopping and I need to drive to the grocery store, and this is something that I need to do. Like, I know it seems so simple and trivial, but I can choose whether I let the car in front of me cut in or not. I can
Yeah.
choose whether or not I smile when I enter the store and the lady is there with her little hand sanitizer. I
Yeah.
can choose that when I'm walking through and I see someone who's behind me, making room for them to make sure they feel comfortable picking up their produce because we want to give each other space,
Hmm.
for safety measures. And again, I know I'm like simplifying this more than I need to, but these are all choices. These are all choices that I make, and it's the same choice when it comes to happiness. It's up to me and it's up to you how you want to see the world and how you want to let today look, because maybe you wake up and you totally miss your glass when you're pouring your orange juice and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I hate this. The day started off awful, this is the worst.
I've done that.
But or you can step back and be like, that's really not a big deal, like it's okay. And we're just going to continue forward. Yeah.
That's it's so
Go.
important that you say that, because you said it, you're simplifying it, but it is, I do agree that it is simple in the sense that it's an everyday decision. So even with small ones, like what you said, letting someone get in front of you, or someone, uh, like when they're walking into a store, like it's that consciousness to always have it in your mind. And it takes effort. I'm not saying
It
it
does,
doesn't. It
yeah.
does. It takes effort, and it goes back to, like, I guess, mental strength or mental uh, endurance to be able to consistently try to do that. Now, we're not here saying that, like, Roz hasn't had like a day that she doesn't want to see anyone or talk to anyone. I'm sure you have. Everybody has, but it's about that effort, right? Just that reminder, and how the perspective of how we look at um and otherwise like a sad event in our life, or even like missing the cup of orange juice, like when you're pouring it in, like something as small as that, to a loss of a loved one, right? Which is all the ranges of different reasons to be down about, right? But and I know people who are on the other end of this, right? I know people who do look at these same situations, and they're more cynical about it, right? Or they're more like, oh, screw this, right? Like, I see that. I do it myself sometimes, right? I catch myself doing it. And I'm, by no means am I saying that I've figured it out like you have with happiness, but it's an effort thing ultimately. As I'm saying, I'm going in circles, but it's an effort thing, and it's harder a lot of days than it's not. um but I always look, whenever I feel like like it's just raining down as far as like negative events. This is silly, but one of my favorite movies is Dark Knight, and I always think about the quote from Alfred to Batman, because it's when Joker is like, he's playing like 8 moves ahead in chess with
Mhm.
Batman, and like whatever Batman tries to like get in front of it, he keeps saying that Joker already knew he was going to do that, and he was already like planning like 5 other things. And then he started going through real like down times as this hero, right? And then he said, what am I supposed to do? Do I break my own rules and try to kill him, right, in the movie? Because his main thing is he doesn't kill people. So
Mm.
he'll put him in prison or whatever, but he doesn't kill him. So Joker gets to his head so much that he does this, and then he's like considering breaking his own rule. But Alfred says the real heroes are ones that can endure. He said you got to endure, and you have to always know that you're probably going to lose a lot of these mental battles, but you have to understand that you can endure the hardship. That's what makes you the hero. It's not that it's because you're not making the wrong choice. You're still making the right choice in the midst of all of that, right? Right choice meaning he does the right thing, for like the humane thing, right? So it's silly in the context of a superhero movie, but you can apply that to real life, I think. And as cheesy as it sounds, it's true. I think it's um, I get inspired by that, and I think, okay, And then there's real people who've done this, by the way, like real life heroes. You know, you have the MLKs in the world, you have the Muhammad Ali's of the world, right? That they went through so much hardship. And by the way, and their life was in front of a camera. Like most of their life was in front of, like everybody was like breathing down their neck. The media was eating them alive, right? The government was eating them alive. Because what were they saying? They were saying, "Hey, let's unite. We're all human," right? They were saying, "Let's have peace." What you're saying, right? And it's a lot to deal with and for them to stand up and put all of that on their shoulders and go through it and not lose their smile, one, right? And then keep their purpose up front and staying focused on their main goal. You know, it's that's like the ultimate. And there are many others, and I just mentioned a couple, but there are many others who've done some similar things to endure these hardships way harder than things I've gone through.
For sure, yeah.
So it's humbling, I guess, to bring it back to the whole nature of this. But it's true, because I think if we're humble enough to understand that we're not alone, there's something peaceful about that. I feel like there's something unifying, just knowing that just you and I, you know, two people that just happen to know each other. But if the two of us have gone through similar hardship, so specific to loss, like loss of a loved one, and then you, me, and Shada, three different examples. Like my wife, one of my close friends, and myself, we've all gone through this in the same year, gone through this very real thing that happens, right? Of loss. But we have having that happen within a span of a year. I think, to me, I look at that as, okay, this is a source of looking at it with the idea of, okay, this is a unifying thing between the people that are still on this earth, because I can connect with you on a deeper level now, or Shada and you, or Emilia and you and me, you know? So it's like, it's, but again, that's choosing to look at it that way, right? I could have been like, not even acknowledging that you went through it. You know what I'm saying? And that's also a choice. So how do you, in times of hardship, how does your mind stay clear enough? And I guess it comes to mental health, right? It also has a lot to do with mentally being able to process all of this. So what would you say to someone who like is struggling with that?
Yeah, I mean, you also touched on some really important points, and I think that one thing that I think about, and this is what I do, and it's not necessarily like, not everyone is in a place, and even myself, like sometimes I'm just not in a place to think about this, but for me, like I know when I'm going through challenges or tests or hardship, I know that it's an opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
And as hard as it is in the time, I know that whatever it is that I'm going through, I'm going to get over it. And I'm going to look back on that time and I'm going to remember how I've grown and how I've changed. So even with this grief that I carry, I look and yes, there were moments where I was like, I just can't do this anymore. And I just need some time. And it's okay for me to cry. It's okay for me to just need to step back from certain activities. And there is no timeline. There is no formula for what is normal. And
right.
I can try and ask someone how they got through something similar, but I have to also keep in mind that their journey is going to be different from my journey. And I have to be patient with that process. I have to be patient with myself. But just trying to keep in mind that, like, yes, this thing sucks and it's awful. And I need to have that. I need to be sympathetic with myself and be understanding, but also realize that I am going to come out of this and I am going to be stronger for that. And hopefully one day I can be support for someone else who's going through something similar.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easier when you've gone through it yourself because you know the steps, you know, like the thoughts that goes through your head. Whereas when you're empathizing with someone, you're trying like as much as you can to offer things that may be helpful,
Yeah.
but the reality is like you haven't experienced it, so you don't know firsthand what it's like.
Yeah.
Um,
It's true. And empathy, that's a great word. I mean, it takes a lot of that, I think. And um, would you agree that most of that work comes from listening to them as opposed to trying to give them the advice we think
totally.
they need
Yeah.
to? Yeah, I've learned that the hard way sometimes because like in my head, I've jumped to this conclusion at times where like, oh, I know what you've gone through. Let me tell you this, this, and this, and then you can bounce right back. And then they look at me like I'm crazy because they're like, you didn't listen to what I've been through. You assumed, right? And that's so important is to remember to wait and just listen to their pain, listen to what they're dealing with specifically. And it is very different. You're right. I mean, everybody goes through different experiences. We can't categorize, even though the end result might be the similar between two or even bigger number of people, larger number of people. It's each one of their paths might have been, or most likely has been, very, very different, and we have to treat every person in a unique way, and we can't categorize. And that's a mistake I think mentally a lot of people make. I make it myself. It's easy to go to that, but again, it goes back to that mental processing and mental endurance that it takes to take that extra step, right? I think don't 9 times out of 10 I've learned not to make the easy choice, but make the choice that's correct, and the correct choice is usually the harder choice.
yes.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another important thing is that I don't want to make it seem like, oh, if you haven't gone through this thing, like you can't offer support. Like absolutely you can. And I think that I've seen so many of my friends go through grief and different hardships that I can't necessarily relate to. And sometimes in my own head, I think, well, I haven't gone through that. I don't think that I'll be able to really support this person.
Mm.
But the truth is, like, you need to reach out. You need to ask questions. And it's okay to say, how can I best support you? How can I be your ally? How can I be here for you? Because at the end of the day, I think that everyone thinks that there's nothing that they can really say that can, make this person feel better. When in reality, there's actually so much we can do, even if it's as simple as like, hey, just come over and go for a walk with me. Like that's what I need right now. I don't need you to say the right thing.
Yeah.
I just need you. And I actually don't even want to talk about this. I just want to go on a walk. I just want to be outside of my house. Something as simple as that.
Yeah, it's therapeutic, and it's different. If it's different ways people deal with hardship. How about someone who doesn't even want to hang out? What do you say to someone like that?
Ooh, that's tough. Yeah. 'Cause you know what? Again, like everyone is on their own journey, and we have to be patient with each other. We have to be patient with ourselves. And so, in those situations, I think that like, you need to give space, but you also don't want to forget about the person. You don't want to let it seem that, hey, okay, I'm going to unsubscribe from this because you seem to not be receptive to me reaching out to you, talk to you in next year.
Right.
Like, we still need to be supportive of the person, even if it is just a little, hey, just wanted to let you know I'm thinking of you. If you need anything, I'm here. But yeah, I think that at the end of the day, people just need to know that you're there for them because, like you said, every single person has not been unaffected by this past year. And I know I said a lot of negatives in that sentence, but essentially everyone has gone through a hardship in this last year, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whether it's, in their personal life, where whatever is happening, no one has gone through this past year and said, yeah, my life was exactly as it was before. Like everyone has had their own challenge. And for some people, it may feel deeper than for others. but we're all in this together and we all need support from each other. We really need to just make sure that we're continuing to keep our friends in mind. And now that we're all at home, it makes it easier in some ways. It obviously makes it harder in other ways. But
Yeah.
I've tried to use this, time at home as an excuse to reach out to my friends that live in other countries and having like FaceTimes with them. And, like I wouldn't have done this if, pre-pandemic, because I'd be so busy. I wouldn't be able to like stay up to a certain hour because of the time zone change, whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
so
true.
yeah.
It's true. We all need love, man. We all need it. I think this is where I feel like less is more, when it comes to reaching out to friends or just family who's going through tough times. Sometimes even strangers. Like I can see it. I see it sometimes in strangers. Again, I'm not, and I'm pretty sure I can speak for you, Roz. You're not saying that we got this thing figured out. Nobody's got it figured out.
We are no experts. I love the topic of happiness, but I absolutely do not have the answers. I can share with you some of the books that I've read, but I do not know the answers.
Yeah, those books are actually, reading I think is huge because you start to learn. I talked about this on another episode. I can't remember which one, but it was the same idea of like whatever struggle we're going through. A quote from, you wouldn't believe it, Will Smith of all people, right? Will Smith in an interview, he said, 'cause when he went through his career change from hip hop to acting and all that, and he still does hip hop too, and then becoming a parent, and then his previous marriage not working out into this current marriage, and then he has a child from previous marriage. Mm-hmm. So all these challenges, he said, what he's learned is that, and he said someone else told him this, and I can't remember that person to give credit to, but he said, for whatever struggle you think that's so unique to you, he said, there's at least a handful of books written just on that topic. Mm. And that's so important to remember. I mean, if we just think about that for a second, first of all, a small percentage of humanity writes books, right? Like, how many authors do we have like out of the over 7 billion people in this world? But then that small percentage, there's several books written on your specific struggle, right? Mm-hmm. That we otherwise thought was unique. Yeah. So to me, what that meant to me is that, okay, that's just a handful of them that wrote a book on it. So imagine how many people that didn't write the book are also still going through that, Yeah. So that's how I viewed that. So moments of like downtimes or moments when you're dealing with hardship, I think about that because I feel like, okay, again, one of the worst feelings that I've gone through is feeling alone, like feeling like I'm the only one dealing with this, right? And it's easy to get in your own head and just think that way.
Yeah.
Or feeling like I'm not understood, right? So anyway, this quote really took it home for me because it made me, and again, I struggle with it still, even knowing that this is a real thing where people deal with these specific things. And now what's funny is you can Google your problem and you see like there's like so many articles and or like a blog or like a community online that's just specific to that. So that's what I meant with strangers, because it's so much easier to connect and unify over not just struggles but positive things too, but like, or good events in your life. But what I'm saying is, I do believe, and I agree with you, that with every struggle, it's an opportunity for growth. I feel like the growth part can be the shared love amongst humanity, right? Because I think, most of us that are lucky, we all wear our pants one leg at a time, right? Like, and so simplifying it to that, and then realizing, okay, everything else is choices ultimately. Like we can choose to approach the day with like the most full, I don't know how to talk anymore, but with the with the most love and passion and joy. Or we can choose to be grumpy, or we can choose to be somewhere in between. It's all in our hands. And so I do want to use that to really get into the mental health aspect of it, because sometimes, again, I know people who I can see it, and I don't tell them this, and I'm not going to name any names, but my point is that um, mental therapy is so pivotal sometimes, a lot of times. I feel like we all can use it to a degree.
Yeah, I don't think that there's anyone on this earth that could say, you know what, I actually don't need that. You can save that for yourself. I don't think there is any person, especially now, like, I can't. And unfortunately, there are those people out there. There is this stigma that still exists for whatever reason, which is really unfortunate because it's this powerful tool that is available to us. But
mental health has been, I mean, it's a modern science relative to human history, but I think that's part of it, right? I mean, it's the evolution of thinking. It's the evolution of perspective and looking at things differently. And I know people who still to this day, right? And they're not even like of a certain age that I could, again, it's easy to categorize, but it's all different ages that I've seen. Male, female, doesn't matter, whatever label, I've seen it all, right? I've seen all types of people look down at therapy or psychology or just that whole field when it comes to them.
What is there not scientific evidence associated? Oh wait, yeah, there is.
Right. Yeah, it's true. And so yeah, how would you have you ever found yourself seeing like, I need to talk to a professional regarding this issue or another?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that there are lots of situations, there are various things in my life that have made me feel that, this is a tool. And at the end of the day, like imagine if you broke your arm and you're like, no, I don't need the cast. I don't need the cast. No, why would you turn this away? This is something that's been proven to help you. And at the very least, start to unpack and figure it out, because we're not professionals. I think that a lot of the reason why the stigma exists is because people feel like I can figure this thing out on my own. I can do the research myself. I can figure it out. I can implement some sort of new behavioral change, whatever it is. I can do this myself. I don't need someone else. And I think that that's where people don't realize that they actually haven't gone to school for that. There are people that have gone to school that have seen cases similar to whatever it is that you or I or whomever may be going through. And for us to turn that down because we think that we can do it on our own is a detriment to the people around us, because those are the people that are left that have to deal with whatever it is that you're going through and have to do the work of a mental health professional, which they are totally untrained and unqualified to do. There are so many people, I'm sure all of us can relate to, like, seeing someone who's struggling and maybe they, for whatever reason, aren't able to or don't want or choose not to seek out mental health professionals. And then, like, everybody else is just kind of left there. And, it's like you see this problem, you offer some solutions, and that person chooses not to move forward with it. Like, they have to continue to deal with this problem, which is only getting worse with time. It's not, I've rarely seen a situation that has gotten better on its own.
I mean, again, that's a lesson of unity, right? Because it's showing that unity and humility. Because I think one of the biggest challenges is people who are dealing with that. Again, everybody deals with it to a degree. No one can say that they haven't woken up any day that they haven't felt weaker mentally or you know what I mean? And emotions has a lot to do with it. Again, I don't claim or even pretend to know anything about the science of mental health. I'm just talking about my own experiences. But um, I think one thing that's really scary for people who are reluctant to go into that route of therapy is accepting that there's something even wrong,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
because I think that there's a lot of emotions that are involved with that, especially if you're more of an emotional person. Um, so how do it? That's the again I think, and you can elaborate on this, but that's where I feel like um, how we approach that person, right? How gentle we are with like reminding them, or even if people aren't. I just feel like people aren't you know oblivious to it, right? I think everybody who's dealing with something deep down knows that, and they're not even, they could be not happy about it. But I think that's such an internal thing sometimes for people that they've never discussed it, out to either to family or friends or anybody, right? And then there are others who are like an open book. They're open to talking about it. But we're right now I'm focusing on the ones that are more personal. They think it's a personal thing, right? And not really always maybe picking up on the fact that it is affecting their surrounding, right? So the same way that positive attitude I feel can affect people
Yeah.
around you, the
Yeah.
opposite is true too. So
Totally. Yeah.
so what do you think about that? What do you think about those, the people who um are thinkers or internalize things, or they're more they hold on to it, or they feel that there isn't something wrong, or there isn't something that could use a professional opinion. What do you think of that? And it does have, I think, a lot to do with how you're raised too, and then that again, it all ties together. But
I
sorry.
think that that's the thing is like, truthfully, there is no one answer. It really, there are so many things that could be at play. It could be ego. It could be lack of awareness that there is actually a problem. It could be the way that you're raised. And you know what? Something that is important to know is that the idea of mental health when we were growing up did not exist. Mental health is like a somewhat newer thing. It's a newer hot topic now. That was not the case when we were growing up. I
Now,
remember.
do you think it's a matter of it wasn't there when we were growing up, or we just weren't really paying attention to it?
No. I'm not saying that the services didn't exist. The services absolutely existed. I just don't think that there was enough attention on it. I think that just in the same way, like I think that this year has been one where we've started to really question traditions. Like we've really started to question, why are things the way that they are?
Yeah.
Whether it's like, Meghan and Harry giving this interview and suddenly you start to look at the royal family and you're like, that's kind of strange, isn't it? But we've
Yeah.
always accepted that.
Yeah.
Or like, let's say women who have pregnant women who have miscarriages, and the fact that like that's kind of taboo to talk about. And why do women wait 3 months before they announce their pregnancy? Like what's wrong with
Yeah.
finding out that you've lost the child, and like now no one, you have to grieve in silence,
Right.
all of these things that and even this idea of therapy, we talked about it being so stigmatized. Like, why is it so stigmatized? Why have we accepted that to be something where we don't talk about it? And I think that in time, and as we progress through these years ahead, especially, I think that there's going to be a much um, deeper focus on mental health, which is great, because I don't know, I can't tell you why we've been accepting things the way that they are, and that we've been just happy to stay quiet about certain things, stay quiet about our struggles, stay quiet about our grief, stay quiet about our loss. We need to
Yeah.
reach out. We need to speak up. We need to make it clear that, hey, yes, I'm a happy person. I'm going to be very positive and loud and outgoing when I see you. But it doesn't mean that I'm not struggling on the inside. It doesn't mean that I'm not dealing with challenges. I'm just trying really hard to work through it, and I haven't got it figured out. But yeah, we all need that support. And yeah, at the end of the day, it really is a choice. Like it's a choice for me. If I decide that, you know, I'm going through something hard and I don't want to seek mental health services, let's say, and reach out to a professional, that's my choice. And that's my choice to continue to suffer in silence, and potentially not even in silence, potentially bring down the people around me, because I chose not to pursue this path of obtaining help. Um,
By the way,
and
I've had, sorry to interrupt, but I just want to mention that I've had moments where I decided to keep things inside when I was dealing with some like real major BS that I had in my life, and I decided to keep it inside. But when I think back on those moments and people who are around me, like I can see that I didn't have to say anything to bring people down.
oh wow,
Right? It's not just words. It's not just how you speak, if you're
yeah,
speaking in a negative tone or positive tone, just the energy that you send, right? Like I didn't even catch myself, but I'm like sitting there like grumpy and you know, but it's like, oh, I'm not saying anything, so no one will be affected. But it's not true. Because people sometimes I don't even know that I'm like giving it off that vibe until Shada, for example, will remind me. I almost spoke Farsi. I almost said Masalan. But yeah, the fob in me came out. But so she'll remind me, and it's good that, I mean, she does that, right? Like Shada is bubbly too. Like she's very,
yeah, absolutely,
but she also has down days just like anybody else. But my point is that it really affects her when I'm having one of those days, right? And then it reminds me about responsibility. Like, okay, I'm not responsible any longer just for me. And the reality is I never was. I was always responsible even before marriage, right? And eventually if we have kids or not. But it's like I've been responsible for people's mood around me. And by the way, everybody is to a degree because we're all connected. I think that energy is, we all have that in common. We all have these like core rays of emotions, right? That we all have. We all deal with it differently, but we all have it. And when we start thinking like, okay, well, if I can help someone have a better day by the way I look, by the way I approach something, why not, right? Why do it the other way where, if you know the saying misery loves company or whatever they say. So that's true too, right? I mean, it didn't, the cliche, it's cliche to say, but it's not false, it's true. But sorry, I just wanted to mention that because you were saying that and that reminded me. But you can continue on what you were saying.
No, that was great. I think I lost my train of thought, but
That's my fault.
No. What you said actually reminds me of another important point, and that is the idea of resiliency. And what does it mean to be resilient? Because we do, yes, as a group, we all are suffering. We all are being challenged and being tested. And at the same time, I don't want to ignore the fact that we have to work hard. And in order for us to grow and to gain these new skills and to gain this, like, have this grit, we have to be resilient. We have to be able to work through whatever is being thrown our way. And if we're able to smile while it's happening, well, good for you. But
yeah,
that's
so
tough too. But yeah, resiliency is another really important point. And that goes side by side or hand in hand with the idea of asking for help. It's okay to ask for help. There's nothing wrong with that. But we as individuals also need to put in the work too, to be able to work through whatever it is, because mental health professionals are not going to solve our problems. They are going to help us through it. And it's up to us to put in the work. Just like if you broke your shoulder, let's say, I don't know anyone who broke their shoulder, maybe
Michigan.
my husband.
and your husband.
Yeah.
I heard about that, by the way. That's crazy that happened.
Yeah, it's really tough. But you know what? It's a great example of physical resiliency, but the emotional and spiritual resiliency, it's completely parallel. The idea is that yeah, you go through something catastrophic that's really, really tough, but you have to do the therapy. Whether it's physical therapy or a different type of therapy, you have to put in the work to get your strength back. And without that, it's only going to get worse. And for example, if you break your shoulder, you have this surgery, and then a year later you decide you want to start therapy, it's over. You're done. That shoulder is
Yeah,
out.
it's true. It's true. And by the way, I hope he's back to 100% or close to it. No.
I mean, he's not at 100%, but he's making huge progress. Like, what's great about Arash is that he has a really like low or high pain tolerance, and so
Okay.
his physical therapist really pushes him, and so he'll push himself to the limits, which is like totally the opposite of me. I have such a low pain tolerance. I'm like, oh, that hurts. I think we're good. I think we're good for today.
Yeah,
The physical therapist will be like, that was 5 minutes. Like, we still have 40 minutes to go.
I just shook your hand, lady.
Exactly. So yeah, we have to put in the work. Like, no one is going to do it for us, no matter what it is that we're going through. We may have support around us, but at the end of the day, it's up to us to be resilient and work through it. And at the end of it, we can look back and be proud of what we've accomplished and what we've worked through, where the bumps were along the road. Looking back now, hindsight is 2020. Now you can say, you know what, at that bump, I could have done this better, or this would have helped me. But we won't know that until we've gone through it.
Yeah. And grief, it's dealing with grief of any sort, right? Either a shoulder injury, or loss of someone, or something is not even related to you. For example, like you and I can remember being kids and dealing with 9/11, right? For me, and then just a quick tangent, because I want to just see what your mindset was when you were seeing that happen live. For me, it was like I walked into I think it was like 9th grade or maybe 8th grade. I like walk into my classroom and I see the tube TV. Back then they had tubes, and and then they were like, it was showing the smoke coming out of one of the twin towers, right? The other one wasn't hit yet, the second one, and then the teacher was just watching TV. She wasn't even acknowledging the kids in the class. I mean, it was like that, right? And for me, at the age of, I don't know, like 14 or 13, I'm like looking at that and I'm saying, like, it was more like, is this a movie? What's going on? Like, that's how I looked at it. But again, a young perspective, right? 13-year-old, like how I was thinking then. But and then I literally saw the second plane hit, and then I was like, oh, this is a movie, right? No, but seriously, that's how I was thinking. But all the kids around were similar. We had a similar thing. Like, we didn't even know to take it seriously. It was shocking enough that we were like, I think it's like a mental defense mechanism where
totally, yeah,
like, what is it, like a survival instinct?
Yeah.
We looked at it as almost like, oh, this has to be a movie. But then that second plane hit, and then they sent everyone home. And then we were out of school for like 5 days. And then, well, we lived there. I lived in.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I lived in Maryland at the time.
East Coast, so you were like actually live watching it. Whereas for me, I was in California. So I was just hearing it on the radio on the way to school.
Yeah. So it was a little bit, I was much closer to the events in New York, and then DC with the Pentagon. My dad was working across the street from the Pentagon, and he came home that same day, and he goes, I was like, Dad, you see the Twin Towers? I hadn't even heard about the Pentagon yet. I didn't even know that happened. And my dad goes, yeah, I saw the plane go over my head. He said he saw the Pentagon airplane go over his head and hit the Pentagon. I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, wait, you were in New York? And then he was like, no, there's a third plane that hit the Pentagon. And then I was like, and again, 13, not really knowing what the Pentagon was, but I knew it was in DC. And then I was like, oh my God, there was a third. And then the fourth one that luckily I mean, not luckily, but unfortunately, people's lives were lost. But it was in Pennsylvania, right? So anyway, you were saying from a kid in California, your perspective at that young age. How did you learn about it, or how did you see it? And then I have a point to wrap this topic up.
I'll be honest that I was also quite young. I think I was in 8th grade, and so I heard about it as we were driving to school. Um, on the radio, and I didn't really understand what was
Yeah.
happening. And
Yeah.
truthfully, like I feel like maybe my teacher explained it to me, but it wasn't going into my head. It wasn't until like later that it really started to digest, like, what is terrorism? What does
Yeah.
that even mean? What is this idea? And then I'm sure you probably experience a little bit of this too, but being of Middle Eastern descent, like how the school kids, because school
Oh my
kids,
God.
like, at our age, they also don't fully understand what's happening.
Right.
They see white and they see colors. And so
Yeah.
you fit into a certain box. And so, things were associated with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really what I remember.
Now that's important that you mentioned that, and that the kids that were of all backgrounds, right, at the time, and they some of them were fine, and they were supportive, but some were um not so much. And I mean, I think most kids have experienced bullying to a degree, but the thing is, the bully is also as like ignorant about life as a kid I was, or as most kids that age are. So I my belief on whatever side with this specific incident of 9/11, and how it was perceived by in the days to come, in the years to come, and how people of Middle Eastern descent were labeled, or they were name called, or they were even beat up, or sometimes, unfortunately, it was way worse than that, right? I feel like the person who committed that wrongful act was, like I said, as ignorant as the kid who was receiving it.
Mhm.
Because we're much more innocent in our minds, and we're not nearly as seasoned. So we've had to had seen this happen from someone we looked up to, right? I'm not saying we had to, or it would be a friend that was choosing to be on either side, and we choose to, again, choice. We chose at that age to go with one route or the other. What I'm trying to get at is, in a long-winded way, is nature versus nurture, right? So
Mhm.
this can kind of put everything we've talked about in one bubble. But the idea of making those choices of being the bully, or being the victim, or being neither, right? Or as an adult, choosing to look at things positively versus letting the negativity take over. Do you think this is more of a natural, like it's part of your nature, or not just you, but most of humanity? Or is it something that's nurture, or is it a little bit of both? How do you, like, is it learned from previous generations? Growing up, you see it, and even though you have friends that come from all different backgrounds, it's we don't know how their home life is all the time, right? Especially growing up.
Mhm.
So where do you think that type of behavior comes from? Is it a genetic thing? So is it like a nature oriented behavior, or is it a learned behavior, or a little bit of both?
You're asking about like the outlook of happiness and like being able to choose how you look at the world.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Your perspectives.
yeah, I definitely think it's a mixture of both. And I say that because I've seen, siblings who have very different outlooks on the world. And, they were both raised in the same household, they have the same parents.
Yeah.
Um, I think that nurture or your lived experience can teach you a lot, and I think that that's where that's where you're confronted with the choice. That's where the situation comes to you, and you decide how you want to deal with it. And maybe you see how your friend deals with it. Maybe you see how it's done in the movies. Maybe you see, you observe different situations, and that's where you kind of absorb that and decide how to act accordingly. But I think that no matter what, oh my gosh, like I feel like I'm going down this like rabbit hole. This reminds me of a conversation I had with my dad, because I was like, Dad, you're so lucky that you had such amazing children. Like, like how did you do it? What was your secret?
Very humble of you.
I mean, truthfully, like Amelia and I, we were like super chill kids. And like
Yeah.
you look around and you're just like, wow, some of these kids are wild. And we did not, my parents never needed to worry about when we're going to get home at night or any of these things.
Right, right.
I attribute a lot of that to the fact that my sister and I had each other, and that we were so close in age, and we were each other's support groups. And thankfully, we were part of the same friend group. So that made that part a little easier. But as parents, like it's their job to support these children and just provide them with whatever they need, so that when they do come into contact with that situation, with whatever circumstance it is, they have the tools to choose what they want to do. Because parents are not going to dictate how a child's outlook is on the world. I think that if a parent or both parents even have really negative outlooks, I think that that's something that will be kept in mind. And I'm sure like kids might be like, oh, I think I know how my mom would respond to this situation, and how my dad would respond to that situation.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, it a lot of the experiences in terms of your outlook, it has to do with how you respond, and then learning from that and being like, okay, that didn't go as well as I thought it would. Maybe next time I'm going to try and do something differently. I definitely think that nature has a lot to do with it, but it's a lot to do with our environment. I think our environment is going to be the place where we continue to make mistakes, and we continue to grow, and we continue to learn, and just decipher between what's the way that we want to live our life. What are the choices that we have, and what do I have control over, and what does the world, like what do I not have control over? And being able to reconcile with those two things, and finding happiness in that, in knowing that I can control this thing that happened to me, I didn't have control over, so I'm not going to cry about it. I'm not going to be upset about it. I'm just going to move forward. And if I need to cry about it, I'm going to do that, because it's my choice how I want to react. And I think it's just it's a balance of being able to be patient with yourself, but also give yourself enough time to move forward and work through whatever it is that's in front of you.
That's amazing. So therapy is important in all these aspects, I feel. And
I think the biggest thing, I mean, it's not just therapy. It's just the idea that we have tools that are available to us. So if we decide that we don't want to use those tools, that's on us. It's not on society. It's on the fact that I woke up and I cut my hand, and I decided I didn't want to use a Band-Aid. I wanted to just let my hand bleed.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, again, simplifying it to that degree, some things are easier to make the right choice on versus wrong choice. And then there are people who argue even that it's like, well, if you let it bleed, it'll naturally heal. Anyway,
no, it's true.
I mean, there's I know this topic is there are a lot of perspectives just on this idea, and but again, I think if we're looking at it as from the perspective of we're responsible for everything around us. It's I do believe that energy is real, and I think that energy is shared amongst everyone. Like you and I are sharing this energy right now, right? But we could have had a totally different conversation based on the choices we made along this last hour and some minutes. But so anyway, being mindful and um, being open to change, being open to learning, being open to growing, um, and again, knowing that our choices are affecting not just us, it'll affect our kids eventually. It'll make life easier or harder for them. It'll affect people around us, um, and even even pets. My dog, like when I have a bad day, he feels it, and he like
yeah.
and their senses are stronger in those. I think like they can sense it a lot at a higher
Children
level.
too.
Yeah,
Children totally can pick up on
children. Yeah,
parents, like whatever
yeah,
aura there it is that they bring home. Children pick up on that, and when we say, "Oh no, kids, nothing's wrong, everything's fine," then they tell themselves, "Oh, okay, that thing, that sense that I have, maybe I should ignore it
yep,
because my parents say that
yep.
not a big deal and
That's
nothing's
right.
wrong, so I must be like misinterpreting this."
Yeah, and some of the. I mean, I have two nephews right now. They're like one is 8 and one is 5, and some of the things I struggle with sometimes, and then I listen to them, like their perspective on it, and it's so pure and so
Mhm.
it's so just human, right? It's so like essential human mind. It's at its purest form, and it reminds me like, okay, I'm making all these reasons to think a certain way. I'm giving myself these reasons from experience, right? From my experiences. So experience is key in shaping your perspectives. Um, but those experiences, the same 10 a group of 10 people can have 10 different perspectives from the
Yeah.
same experience. So point being, um, thinking about it and making the right choice, I think, is important. But again, neither of us are professionals in this field. It's just your experience, and that's why I wanted you on here, because you're one of my favorite people when it comes to this topic of happiness.
Thank
And
you.
speaking of that, I was so happy to have you on here. Did you?
I'm so happy we were able to do this because we get to talk about something that I love talking about, but we also get to catch up, which we.
I know, and we have to catch up more. By the way, just offline. We don't have to always use
What, you
this
don't
as
think your 5 viewers want to listen to us catching up?
I think you added a few today, just based on what you said. No, um, but but yeah, I obviously miss you. It's been a long time. We always talk whenever you're visiting here. It's been hard to even visit here, I know, but I guess the borders are open now, or what? How is it? It's still.
I don't think I'll be able to come until I get my vaccine because in order
Oh
to
yeah.
return to Canada, you have to quarantine in a hotel. So,
Okay, so
and it's at your own expense.
yeah. So it's more strict there, which is good. I mean, it's strict here too, but California numbers are going down, fortunately. Hopefully, and then some other states as well. But this has been a learning experience. This whole COVID thing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and I've learned a lot. I'm continuing to learn, and again, it's an opportunity for growth, and that's how I have to look at it for me. And it's been hard on a lot of families, job security wise, and just the social mind, right? It's harder to see people, it's harder to communicate. So all of this, I think, has taught a lot of lessons. And I'm so happy that you were able to come on here today during Women's History Month, by the way. Yeah, is that not a thing over there?
No,
Canada?
I was like, wait, I thought it was, and then I was like, yeah, it is March. I was like, are we still in March? I was like, is it April already?
Yeah.
So happy to be here. Seriously, thank you so much for having me. You know that I'm always happy to chat. So if there's anything or any time that you ever want to talk about anything.
Oh my God. And absolutely. Do you want to plug anything, or you are okay without that?
I will just plug that I'm so impressed with all of the people that have used this time to develop new skills and new interests and new hobbies. I wish that I could say I was one of those people and I could share with you what cool thing I did, but unfortunately I'm not one of those people. But I would just like to shout out those people, and I just want you to know I see you, I applaud you, I support you.
I love it. I love it. I think that was the best plug. The most that was the humblest plug I've heard. So if humblest is a word, considering this is a humble podcast. Anyway, thank you, Roz. Now,
Thank you for having me.
yeah, and I hope Arash gets better and back to basketball shape because I want to come play with him.
Yes, hopefully.
Thank you, Roz.
Together we'll purify the mind and have a good time. I'll showcase your very